Okay, imagine this. I'm standing in a fancy ballroom, chandeliers sparkling, champagne flowing, and my parents raise their glasses for a toast. Everyone's smiling, laughing, until they say, "Some kids make you proud. Others just take up space." The room explodes with laughter. And me? My heart's pounding, my face is burning, and I feel like I'm disappearing. That was the moment I snapped. The moment I, Emily, decided they'd regret every cruel word they ever threw at me. Want to know how I turned their laughter into total humiliation? How I tore apart their perfect little world and built a life they could only dream of? Stick with me because this revenge story, oh, it's so good you won't believe how it ends. If you've ever been hurt by the people who were supposed to lift you up, or if you've dreamed of serving ice-cold justice to someone who underestimated you, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll ever hear. Alright, let's start at the beginning. My name's Emily, and I grew up in what looked like the perfect family. Picture a big, beautiful house in a ritzy Connecticut suburb, white picket fence, manicured lawn, the whole American dream vibe. But behind that pretty facade, it was a war zone. My parents, Richard and Margaret, were obsessed with keeping up appearances. Country club memberships, fancy charity galas, all that jazz. And their pride and joy? My older sister Claire was, well, she was their golden child. Blonde, charming, with this megawatt smile that could win over anyone. She was the star, valedictorian, prom queen. The daughter who could do no wrong. And me? I was just there. The other kid. The one who didn't fit. I was quiet, kinda nerdy, with frizzy brown hair and glasses that always slid down my nose. I loved painting, writing poetry, losing myself in art. But to my parents, that was just cute. A hobby, not a future. "Why can't you be more like Claire?" they'd say, their voices sharp, like a knife twisting in my gut. I can still hear my mom's heels clicking on the hardwood floor as she'd walk away, dismissing me without a second glance. It wasn't just words. It was everything. When Claire got into Yale, my parents threw a party that was basically a royal coronation. Caterers, live music, the works. I swear it was bigger than most weddings. But when I got into a small liberal arts college with a scholarship for my art portfolio, my dad barely looked up from his coffee. "That's nice, Emily," he mumbled, "but don't expect us to pay for some painting degree." I was 18, and I already felt like I was nothing. Like I was just taking up space in their perfect little world. The worst part? It wasn't just the big moments. It was the little ones that cut the deepest. The way my mom's face would light up when Claire walked into a room, but when she saw me, her smile would fade, like I was a disappointment she had to endure. The way my dad would interrupt me mid-sentence to ask Claire about her latest internship. The way they'd laugh off my dreams like they were some silly kid's fantasy. "Emily, not everyone's meant to shine," my mom told me once, sipping her wine, her voice so cold it made my skin prickle. I'd go to my room, lock the door, and just sit there trying not to cry, feeling like I was shrinking smaller and smaller. I tried so hard to make them see me. I'd stay up late studying, hoping a perfect report card would get them to notice. I'd overhear them bragging about Claire at their fancy dinner parties and think, maybe if I try harder, they'll talk about me like that. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. Claire was their sun, and I was just a shadow. By my early 20s, I was drowning in their disapproval. I'd graduated college, but instead of chasing my dreams, I was stuck working dead-end jobs, waitressing, tutoring, anything to avoid moving back home. Meanwhile, Claire was living the high life. She'd landed a big job at a marketing firm in New York City, and my parents couldn't shut up about her. They'd call me just to gush about her latest promotion or her fancy penthouse apartment. "When are you going to get your life together, Emily?" my dad would snap, his voice like a whip. I'd grip the phone so tight my knuckles turned white, fighting back the tears. But the moment that broke me, that came at my parents' 30th anniversary party. A night I'll never forget. A night that changed everything. It was one of those perfect summer nights, warm and breezy, and my parents had gone all out. They'd rented a ballroom at their country club, the kind of place that screams old money, crystal chandeliers, polished wood floors, waiters gliding around with trays of champagne. The guest list was their entire elite social circle. Doctors, lawyers, CEOs, all decked out in designer clothes, laughing and clinking glasses. My parents were in their element, working the room, their smiles big and fake. I almost didn't go. I was 25, barely making ends meet as a freelance graphic designer, and the last thing I wanted was to be surrounded by people who'd look at me like I was a failure. But Claire called me, her voice all sweet and syrupy. "Emily, you have to come," she said. "It's Mom and Dad's big night. Don't be selfish." I should have seen the red flags, but I put on my best dress, a simple black one. I'd found at a thrift store, tried to tame my frizzy hair, and drove to the club, my stomach twisting with nerves. Walking into that ballroom was like stepping into another world. Claire was there, radiant in a red gown that probably cost more than my car. She was holding court, charming everyone with her quick wit and perfect smile. My parents were right beside her, practically glowing with pride. When I walked up, my mom gave me this tight little smile. "Oh, Emily, you made it," she said, like she was shocked I'd even shown up. My dad didn't even look at me. He was too busy introducing Claire to some big shot attorney. I tried to fade into the background, nursing a glass of cheap wine, dodging small talk. But then came the speeches. My dad grabbed the microphone, his face flushed with pride as he thanked everyone for coming. He went on and on about their perfect marriage, their perfect life, and of course, their perfect daughter, Claire. The crowd clapped and cheered as he bragged about her Ivy League degree, her corner office, her glamorous New York life. I stood there, my heart sinking, waiting for him to say something about me. Just one thing, and then he did. Oh, he did. "Some kids make you proud," he said, his voice booming through the room. "Others, well, they just take up space." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, and the crowd laughed. A loud, roaring laugh that felt like it was ripping me apart. My mom laughed too, her hand on Claire's shoulder. Claire smirked, her eyes glinting with something mean. My chest tightened, my face burned, and I felt every single pair of eyes in that room turn to me. The laughter echoed, loud and cruel, like it was coming from every direction. I wanted to sink into the floor. I wanted to scream, but I just stood there, frozen, my hands shaking so hard. I nearly dropped my glass. I don't know how I got through the rest of the night. I remember stumbling to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, and staring at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my cheeks flushed with shame. They think I'm nothing, I thought. They've always thought I'm nothing. But right there, in that moment, something inside me shifted. A spark of anger, white hot and fierce, lit up in my chest. I wasn't going to let them win. Not anymore. Driving home that night, the laughter from the party kept replaying in my head, over and over, like a song I couldn't turn off. My parents' words, Claire's smirk, the crowd's amusement. It was all too much. I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. "I'm done," I whispered to myself. "I'm done letting them make me feel like this." For weeks after, I couldn't stop thinking about every time they'd torn me down. The time my mom threw out my sketchbook because it was clutter. The time my dad laughed in front of his friends and said my art was a waste of time. The way Claire would borrow my ideas and pass them off as her own, knowing I'd never call her out. And you know what I realized? Their cruelty wasn't about me. It was about them. Their need to feel big by making me feel small. Their obsession with their perfect little image, and I was going to shatter that image into a million pieces. But how? I wasn't rich like them. I didn't have their connections or their charm. All I had was me, my talent, my grit, and this burning need to prove them wrong. I started thinking about what I was good at. My art, my creativity, my ability to tell stories through design. I'd always dreamed of starting my own graphic design business, but I'd been too scared to go for it. Too scared of failing, of hearing their voices in my head saying, "See, we told you you'd never amount to anything." But that night at the party, it lit a fire in me. I was done being afraid. I threw myself into work. I took every freelance gig I could find. Logos for small businesses, flyers for local events, anything. I taught myself new design software, stayed up until 3 a.m., perfecting my portfolio, and reached out to anyone who'd give me a shot. Every time I wanted to give up, I'd hear my dad's voice. "Others just take up space," and I'd keep going. I wasn't just building a business. I was building a way to fight back, a way to show them who I really was. Fast forward 2 years, I'd done it. My graphic design business, Liberate Designs, was taking off. I'd started with small clients, then landed startups, then big brands. My work was getting noticed, featured in design magazines, winning awards. I'd moved to Boston, got myself a cozy little apartment, and was living life on my own terms. For the first time, I felt free. But my parents and Claire, they had no clue. They still thought I was the same old Emily, scraping by, not worth their time. Then I got the email. My parents were hosting another big event, a fancy charity gala to raise money for some, because they didn't even care about. It was just another excuse to show off their perfect family, their perfect daughter. The invitation was addressed to me, but it felt like an afterthought. "We expect you to attend, Emily," my mom wrote. "Don't embarrass us." I laughed out loud when I read it. Embarrass them? Oh, I was planning something way bigger than that. This gala was my chance, my stage. I wasn't just going to succeed quietly. I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to feel the weight of every cruel word they'd ever said. So I got to work. I reached out to one of my biggest clients, a tech startup that was sponsoring the gala. I pitched them a bold idea, a stunning visual campaign to promote their brand at the event, all designed by me. They loved it. They agreed to plaster my work on every screen, every banner, every program at the gala. My name, Emily Harper, was going to be everywhere, but I didn't stop there. I'd heard whispers that Claire's perfect life was starting to crack. Her marketing firm was losing clients, and there were rumors of shady behavior, stealing ideas, cutting corners. I did some digging and found proof. Emails, project files, even a blog post from a former colleague calling her out. I wasn't going to blast it all over the internet. That's not who I am, but I made sure the right people at the gala would know. I sent anonymous tips to a few key guests, including a journalist who loved digging into corporate scandals. If Claire's reputation was going to fall, it wouldn't be because of me. It would be because of her. The night of the gala came, and I was ready. No thrift store dress this time. I'd splurged on a sleek, emerald green gown that made me feel like $1,000,000. My hair was in soft waves, and I ditched my glasses for contacts. When I walked into that ballroom, heads turned. For the first time, I didn't feel like the other daughter. I felt like Emily Harper, the woman who'd built something incredible from nothing. The gala was in full swing, and my parents were loving every second, working the crowd like they owned the place. Claire was there too, in a sparkly silver dress, but something was off. Her smile was fake, her eyes nervous, like she knew trouble was coming. My parents, though, totally oblivious, toasting their guests, soaking up the attention. Then the lights dimmed, and the screens lit up. My designs filled the room, bold, vibrant, impossible to ignore. The tech startup's CEO took the stage and said, "We're proud to showcase the work of Emily Harper, a visionary designer who's changing the game." The crowd went wild, clapping and cheering. My heart felt like it was going to explode with pride. My parents? Oh, their faces were gold. My mom's champagne glass froze in midair. My dad's jaw clenched so hard I thought it'd snap. Claire's eyes went wide, and she whispered something to my mom, who just shook her head, stunned. But the real kicker came. During the Q&A, the journalist I'd tipped off stood up and asked, "Ms. Harper, care to comment on the allegations of intellectual property theft at your firm?" The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Claire's face turned beet red, and she stumbled over her words, trying to dodge it. My parents looked like they'd been hit by a truck. The crowd started murmuring, and I could see their perfect little world cracking right in front of everyone. I didn't need to say a thing. I just stood there sipping my drink, watching it all go down. My mom tried to corner me later, her voice all shaky. "Emily, how could you do this to us?" she hissed. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You did this to yourselves." My dad grabbed my arm, his face red with rage. "You're ungrateful," he spat, "after everything we've done." I just laughed, a real free laugh. "You tore me down my whole life," I said, "and I built myself up anyway." Walked out of that gala feeling like I was floating. Claire got fired from her firm a week later. My parents' fancy social circle started shrinking as people gossiped about their favoritism, their cruelty. And me? I went back to Boston, to my business, to my life, a life I'd built without them. Sometimes the best revenge is just living your truth. Emily showed her family their words couldn't break her. She found peace in her strength, her freedom. The takeaway? Don't let anyone dim your shine. Karma's got a way of setting things right. Did Emily's story give you goosebumps? Smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What's the best revenge you've ever seen? Want more stories like this? Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.